So let's take a look at how we can add jQuery to a document. So one of the easiest ways to do it when you're just working with an HTML document is look for the jQuery CDN link. And if you go here to this first link, we should be able to find an actual jQuery CDN link. So any of these versions will work for what we're trying to do. If you go to the minified version, that means it's just kind of compressed. It's a little bit smaller. That's what you want to use in production. So we can grab this URL and link to it in our actual document. The way we do that, same deal. We just say script, source, set it equal to that link, and then close the script tag. Okay, so now when I save that, if I go back here and I refresh, we now have jQuery added to this document. That interaction here is what we had from before. I'm just going to get rid of that for now so it doesn't keep doing that. So keep in mind, this is how many lines of code it takes to do that kind of interaction. You'll see that jQuery makes it a lot easier. We can write a lot less. Okay, so we've imported the library into our document. If I refresh and I go to elements and I go to the head here, you can see we've imported jQuery's library, and you can click on that link to actually see the jQuery library itself loaded onto the page. So it's there, it's inside of our document now, and now we can use it. So let's look at some of the basics of the jQuery syntax. Okay, so I want to point out that the jQuery website itself is excellent. They've really documented jQuery, pretty well, and it's really easy to kind of read about and learn. When you're new to it, I'll say that it's a little tricky, but you'll get used to how to read this web page down the line and really understand its documentation. So let's take a look at it really quick. So if we want to select elements with jQuery, we saw in JavaScript you have to do this document.getElement by ID, or you have to do document.get elements by class name, right? So we can do all those different statements to grab these elements. Now with jQuery, first of all, you should know that jQuery uses this $ syntax. Okay, so this is the shorthand way to write jQuery, and you can say, okay, anything that's going to go in this parentheses will get affected by jQuery. Let me space this out a bit. So in terms of selecting with jQuery, we can just do this $ syntax and then put any kind of CSS selector here. So this is a lot like document.query selector, okay, where you can put any kind of CSS selector in there. That's kind of what's going on here with jQuery. We can put any kind of CSS selector. So I can put an H1 and it'll target all the H1s in here. I can do P and it'll target all the paragraphs that are in here. And remember, that'll give you back an array of all the paragraphs. Now I could do a class name as well, like para, which we're using right here. And it'll give me back all of the elements, an array, that have that class name on it. In this case, both paragraphs do. And likewise, I can even target a heading by doing something like this. So let's start with this heading. Okay, so I've targeted it and I've selected it with jQuery. We now have that selected. Let's go ahead and store that in a variable. We'll just say variable H. Use that same letter H for storing it. Now when I refresh the page, if I go to inspect element, go over to my console, if I type in H, it should know I'm referring to that particular element. And notice again, it's selected it as an array. So that means it's selecting all of the H1s. This is an array. We're not actually selecting the particular H1 itself. Even though there's only one here, it's in an array. So to select that particular element, we would have to do that. And there you go. It's no longer inside of the brackets. That means it's not in an array. We've selected the actual first element of this array, which is H1, even though there's only one element in there. So that's how we select that particular or target that particular HTML element. So now that we've done that, we can start adding other functions with our jQuery. And so we'll take a look at that next, but I just wanted to point out that this is how you select with jQuery. is simply use this $, and then parentheses, and whatever CSS selector you want. Now, you will see it sometimes written like this, and that's totally fine as well. It'll know what you're talking about, but just keep in mind, $, is a very common way to see jQuery written out.